And my name is David Albert Jones, and I'm Professor of Bioethics at St Mary's University, and I'm also Secretary to the Augustine Bioethics Network. Um, and now to move from Scotland to England, and in relation to the recent bills, the bill in England was more recent than the bill in Scotland. The build up towards the current bill, I think you can date it. Well, you can probably date it to the day of the 19th of December 2023, which was the beginning of a campaign by Dignity in Dying, with the announcement by Esther Rantzen that she was considering going to Dignitas. And this was very big in the Daily Mail, and there was a campaign involving Esther Rantzen and the Daily Mail and Dignity in Dying, which was aimed towards, in particular, getting the leaders of the parties to commit to giving time to a bill if a bill were to come up. But the reason for doing it at this time was because there was a large expectation that there would be a change of government in the summer of 2024, and that the next Prime Minister would be the leader of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, who was known to be in favour of assisted dying, as he would call it, assisted suicide. So it was thought that this was a great opportunity, I think, for the people who were in favour of a change in the law in England. And so there was a lot of campaigning during that time, the first half of 2024. And then when there was the general election in the summer, there was indeed a very large swing to Labour, and a Labour Party with a majority of over 160, with a leader of the party who was known to be in favour of legalisation of assisted suicide, and who had publicly committed to giving time to assisted suicide. And then in the first ballot for private members bill in the September of 2024, the person who came top of the ballot, Kim Leadbeater, though she had not been somebody who in the past had expressed a particular interest in this topic, decided to take the legalization of assisted suicide as the topic of her private members bill. And she was a member of the Labour Party. So all of these things now seemed to align to be the best chance for people who were in favour of assisted legalization of assisted suicide to change the law. And so the Terminally Ill Adults End of Life Bill had its second reading in the November of 2024, and it passed again. It passed comfortably, I think, by 330 to 275. That is a majority of 55. So in order to overturn this, whereas in Scotland they needed I think 7 people to change their minds. In Westminster, they needed 28 MPs to change their mind in order to defeat this bill. So that was an extremely large ask. The bill was similar to the Scottish bill and to previous attempts at legislation in England, in that it was restricted to assisted suicide, not including euthanasia. That is to say, the person had to do it themselves. You couldn't have a doctor or another healthcare professional do it. And also it was restricted to people who were terminally ill and expected to die within 6 months. That also was something which had been in previous legislation in the United Kingdom. A difference in the legislation which is brought forward by Kim Leadbeater, an innovation, was that it should also have the extra safeguard of a High Court judge, of a legal procedure prior to agreement to assisted suicide. So that as well as the medical procedure, you would have this legal procedure which was headed by a High Court judge, and that would give an extra safeguard which hadn't been in previous bills and didn't exist in other jurisdictions. And this was one of the things which persuaded so many people to back the bill. Another thing that persuaded people to back the bill was that the sponsor, Kim Leadbeater, committed to the public bill stage being able to take evidence, so that she said there would be extra scrutiny to the bill in a way that there wasn't for previous legislation. But what happened was that the in the public bill stage, first of all, the public bill committee was stacked 15 to 8. So in terms of people who were in favor of the of her not just legislation in general, but the particular legislation she was bringing forward, so that every time there was a division in the committee, every time there was a vote in the committee, 90 times out of 92 times it went with the sponsor of the bill. So it meant that even though there were some criticisms of the bill, which came up in committee, all of the amendments, nearly all of the amendments which were passed, were actually amendments from within the people who were in favour of the bill. And also that the evidence that was taken was largely one-sided evidence. It was evidence from people who were suggesting that there were no problems with the bill. So even though the public bill stage lasted for quite a long time, and in that sense there was a lot of scrutiny, it wasn't scrutiny which actually changed the substance of the bill, except that some of the changes that were put forward by Kim Leadbeater, of which there were 150. So there were many changes to the bill, but all from the sponsor. One of them was to take out the High Court judge. So the innovation which was supposed to make the bill stronger, in fact, was taken out. Then after the public bill committee stage, there were only 3 days of debate that most MPs had about all of these extra changes and about other amendments that MPs would like to see. So that when it came to its third reading, it still passed, but it passed with a much reduced majority. It passed with a majority of only 23 and no longer a majority of Parliament. And then it went from the Commons to the Lords. And before it arrived at the Lords, there were two Lords committees, the Constitution Committee and the Delegated Powers Committee, which had a look at the bill. And they were, to be polite, scathing about the bill. They thought that the bill was very badly drafted. And they said that this was because, unlike government legislation, it hadn't had a period of pre-legislation scrutiny. So that the bill was really sort of made up on the hoof during the process by people who were in favour of the bill, but it hadn't had the kind of level of scrutiny that a government bill would have had. And one of the conclusions of that, the results of that, was that it included many extra delegated powers, actually 42 delegated powers, where difficult issues in the bill were referred to future legislation, future regulation by the Secretary of State. So how it would be delivered, whether it would be delivered by the NHS, all of these things, whether you could restrict advertising, all of these things were to be decided by regulation by the Secretary of State. So you had a bill which didn't say on the face of it how it would actually be implemented. It was also, for a private member's bill, rather, it was extremely long. The typical length of private member's bill which passes in this country is about 4 pages. The terminally ill adults end of life bill is 51 pages. So it's a very long bill, which includes lots of difficult and some novel elements. And so it is not surprising that it attracted a lot of amendments. It also attracted a lot of concern and interest from peers in the House of Lords, so that there were actually 2 days of second reading. And this was only the third time since the war that there had been 2 days of second reading for a bill in the House of Lords, for a private member's bill in the House of Lords. And the other two were both one was in 1957, one was in 1965, and they were both about capital punishment. So this was an issue that really gripped people, and so you had a lot of peers who then were interested in it, who wanted to speak on it, who wanted to put forward amendments. So the result of which was that eventually it was running out of time, and we will see what happens in 2 weeks' time. On the 24th will be the last session, but realistically, there is no way that it can get through all the amendments which were put forward. Those who were in favour of the bill have criticised opponents for filibustering by putting forward extra amendments and talking for so long, too long, and that kind of thing, and said that this was due mainly to half a dozen members of the House of Lords. But in fact, 147 members of the House of Lords have spoken in these various debates, and they've spoken on average for 6 or 7 minutes. So it isn't the case that people are making long speeches. It is the case that this was a very badly drafted bill, and as a result of which it is going to run out of time. And at that point, I'm running out of time, so I will hand over to Mark, who will tell us about what has happened in Wales.